Today, I'm joined by the wonderful Dr. Bylender Walia, who is a skilled psychotherapist. I'm having to read this because there is such a long list. She is an anxiety specialist. She is an award-winning voice in mental health and holistic well-being. She is the author of the wonderful book, Fix Me, How to Manage Anxiety and Take Control of Your Life. She is also a radio host of UK Health Radio and winner of the UK Health Radio's own mental health and wellness category. Today, I've invited Bylender on because her work focuses on helping people predominantly understand anxiety, ADHD and stress in a practical, compassionate and holistic way. And I am so looking forward to driving into this conversation with you, Bylender, and for everyone that is going to be watching this and hearing this, because I know that Bylender is a firm advocate for nurturing inner harmony that starts with self. Hello, Bylender.
Thank you for such a beautiful introduction, and thank you for having me today. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. So I have got some questions for you.
Yes.
We're going to be talking about your wonderful book. And if you have not heard of this book, we're going to be learning a bit more about Bylender's book, everybody. And I am going to be leaving links underneath this or wherever you see this so you can go and get your own copy on Amazon because it is amazing. But
thank you.
I'm going to start with asking a question that I know everybody kind of thinks about when they are seeing someone or thinking of seeing a psychotherapist or a counselor or somebody, which is, why did you become a psychotherapist? So I'm going to ask that question. I know it's very basic to start with, but it's kind of like, why? What led you here? Why did you become a psychotherapist?
Well, it's funny because I actually didn't want to be a psychotherapist or anything that had anything to do with the mind or the body or any behavior. I actually wanted to be a pilot.
Really?
Yes.
That's so odd.
I know, it's completely different from what I actually had as a life plan. But on that journey of wanting to be a pilot, I suffered from motion sickness and extreme anxiety. And every time I was getting into the cockpit, ready to fly, I was fainting or feeling sick. And so that dream was shattered and I was lost. I didn't know what to do. So I started volunteering in a special educational needs school. And while I was working there, somebody suggested to me that, oh, you're so good with people, you're really relatable, you should go into education. So after my psychology degree, I then went on to, after my psychology degree, I then went on to study education.
Okay.
And I qualified as a teacher. And while I was working as a teacher, I was fascinated by behavior, the fear factor, people being in fight or flight mode. And so I thought, you know what? Actually learning about people's behavior is really interesting, and the way children respond, family, parents respond, teachers respond, all of that. So I went back into learning more about psychology, and I came to a point where I had reached as far as I could possibly go in education. And I thought, right, I'm going to focus on being a psychotherapist now. So I became a psychotherapist and I met really interesting people. And straight away, my heart was in it. I loved it. And I thought, yes, this is for me. But my journey was like a maze. It just took me in a totally different direction. I had to understand where that anxiety was coming from initially for why I couldn't fly a plane.
Wow. Oh my goodness me. Well, thank goodness, that you weren't any good at flying a plane. Because
can you imagine? I would have been collapsed all the time.
Yeah, well, you contributed so much to, particular areas with anxiety and stress, like you said. But before we start going into some other questions, just for certain people, in case they kind of don't quite understand what a psychotherapist is, because it's kind of like, is it the same as a psychologist? What actually is a psychotherapist?
So a psychotherapist, they listen and they give advice. Okay, but it's not, and they use different modalities. They're not medically trained. A lot of people become clinical psychologists or psychotherapists to be medically trained. A psychotherapist can prescribe medicines as well. And so a psychotherapist is more than talk therapy, it's advice therapy as well. And the difference lies there more than anything else. They integrate a lot of modalities. So it might be cognitive behavioral therapy, might be dialectical behavior therapy, might be clinical advice on ADHD or stress management and things like that. They also, a lot of psychotherapists are qualified in integrated psychology. So they, again, use combination of person-centered psychology, where they are focused more on the person and going back to learning more about the person and learning about their experience and getting to the root cause of an issue, and then giving advice of what way will help a person move forward, what methodology will help a person move forward, what advice they give thereafter is always catered to the individual's needs.
Okay, wow, that is really, really, really interesting. And I'm going to read the first little paragraph of your introduction, because I know when I read this, this is just going to open the floodgates to all of the questions. And I know when I read this out, you picked this so well, or to write this for your, I think for the introduction, because this resonates with so many people. I think it will do. So guys, get your listening ears on. This is the start of the introduction of Bylender's book, Fix Me. Have you ever experienced the overwhelming grip of dread, as if the world is conspiring against you? Do you find yourself trapped in a sea of worry and despair, struggling to find a way to break free? Anxiety can be an unyielding force, leaving you feeling helpless and isolated. It may manifest as physical symptoms like headaches, stomach aches, and heart palpitations, seemingly without a clear cause. You might witness others living your desired life while you feel like yours is slipping away. These experiences are all too familiar, leaving you longing for guidance and support. But fear not, for the path to transform these thoughts lie within these pages. Like, wow.
Oh, thank you.
I know myself, because as we know, I've suffered with anxiety and depression, as I'm sure lots of the people watching this video will have done. You couldn't have articulated that any better. It is so profound. So where does mental health actually come from when we're talking about the mental condition happening, when we're thinking of being in those types of situations or experiencing those types of feelings? Where does mental health come from?
I think from my experience, and I've been practicing psychology for decades now, I think from what I've learned, and the people I've supported from all walks of life, whether it's professionals, entrepreneurs, parents, celebrities, whoever it is, anxiety and repeated patterns are a deep longing to feel that they need to be back in control of their lives. And anxiety, I always say this, is a part of our DNA. It is within us. Is within human nature. And most people initially come to me with symptoms of anxiety, panic attacks, overwhelm. And usually, through talking to a lot of people, I've learned one thing in particular. It comes from past trauma, past experience, and subconscious beliefs, and the deeper imprints that shape behavior. And in my experience, again, a lot of what we have held on to in our subconscious mind, our actions and reactions are influenced by what's stored in the subconscious mind. And if someone keeps repeating the same, say, for example, relationship patterns, they might self-sabotage, or they feel they're not good enough. It's rarely coincidence, it's conditioning. And until those underlying beliefs are addressed, the cycle continues, and then it sometimes worsens because of the influence that they have around them and the environment and what they're exposed to. And that's why simply making a conscious decision to change often isn't enough. You can decide to be healthier mentally. A lot of people that I speak to, they say, I want to get better, I want to feel better, but I have no control. And so you can decide to be healthier and more confident and more disciplined to try and help yourself, but you fall back into those patterns because of that subconscious belief that you're carrying. And it could be something from your past which made a person feel that they're not good enough, they're a failure or unworthy. And when they have those thoughts and beliefs, no affirmation, nothing will land. And if the subconscious is running in a different narrative, repeating positive statements can create internal conflict. And that's where they know and they're aware that they do want to feel better, but they can't seem to find a way out of that mindset and what they're saying to themselves. It can be very difficult to sustain change. And it's important then to speak to a professional, whether it's a psychologist or a psychiatrist, or you have to recognize your symptoms, you have to recognize the emotions you're feeling to get that assistance from a psychotherapist or someone of a professional capacity who can then guide you to help you understand what it is that you're feeling, and then slowly but surely reframe those beliefs that are beneath the behavior. So it's not as simple as people may believe, because there's a lot, and I know that we've spoken about this earlier, Alison, where there's a lot of people that do coach and they can coach a person in their lifestyle, but those rewiring aspects of the brain, and the brain is malleable, it's not always easy. You have to go back. I believe, this is my opinion, my experience, and this is what I practice as a psychotherapist. You have to go back to the root cause of why those belief systems are there in the first place, and why the limiting beliefs of that mental or emotional behavior or health that you have is something you can't get by, so
that is so true. And I think today, particularly in the wellness niche, we are seeing more and more people become wellness coaches that are extracting certain conditions or even neurodivergence and trying to box it as one thing. And like you said, lots of these things are very fluid in a sense. They're very interrelatable to the whole dynamic of that person and their whole life experience. So where would you say then, where does normal stress end and clinical anxiety actually begin?
You see, can I just go back to what you said earlier? It's therapy is not one size fits all. That's really important. And when we were talking about the coaching, I feel that's the difference, because a lot of people who are, say, for example, experts in EFT or NLP, or yes, there are similarities, but I think it's important to remember that one size doesn't fit all. My role is to tailor the process to the individual, always working safely and collaboratively, and always with an understanding of how subconscious patterns are influencing the present. And And again, going back to the question that you asked, it's the nervous system regulation. It's fundamental. And it's fundamental in my work as well, that emotional freedom happens when the body no longer reacts to the present as if it's still reliving the past. So when a person, say, for example, is replaying thoughts and experiences of their past, say a past trauma, which is very common in those who experience post-traumatic stress disorder, it's very important that when they are replaying these things in their mind, the stress, they understand that the stress is going to accumulate. And if the stress is constantly being accumulated by those memories of reliving the past, then of course that's when anxiety extends, because your chemical releases from your brain, your cortisol levels increase, and that can impact your physical well-being. If it impacts your physical well-being, of course, then those ailments that you're feeling physical can make you feel down, can make you feel anxious. You could be in a certain place, or that might trigger that memory again, and that anxiety increases because then you're replaying what you've experienced that you've not been able to cope with in the past, which might be a panic attack, So it's that emotional freedom only happens when the body no longer reacts to the present as if it's still reliving that past. And if the body feels unsafe, the mind will struggle to change, and safety must come first. So it's really important that you understand yourself. And this is what that book is about. My book is about. It's all about actually understanding yourself well enough to know what your emotions are, what you're physically feeling, your symptoms, what your triggers are, because that's really important to understand that about yourself. That self-awareness of what's happening in your body and what you're processing and how you're responding to it is so important. And you can only do that if you become self-aware. And when you become self-aware, you become self-accepting. And when you become self-accepting, which we could, I'm sure, go into detail about a bit later on, you then start being more kinder to yourself and more self-compassionate.
This is so true. But I will say, obviously, I have PTSD, as you know, myself. And when I was first diagnosed with it, I was unfortunately going through a horrendous, as we all know, situation. And I had alongside that the kind of byproducts. I had the stress, I had the anxiety, and I had the depression. And I wish I'd have had this book then, because I could not see the wood for the trees. And I had to have cognitive behavioral therapy. And for me, I am so pleased that I had it, because it enabled me to understand more about my condition and how I was reacting to the conditions and how the conditions were manifesting in me and why they were happening, which had I not have had the therapy, and had I not have, found obviously books like yourself and interact with people like you, I could have stayed locked in literally a relentless forest of darkness is probably the best way to describe it, because on my best day I literally looked and felt like Hagrid, and I'm not even joking. I was in the depths of despair. So for some people who are really struggling with PTSD, anxiety and stress, and are fearful of reaching out for help, are fearful of the judgment, because there is this premise that, we all need to talk about mental health. But I know myself, the moment I did to people around me, I could just see people recoiling, and that made me very, obviously, as a business owner and entrepreneur as well, it made me very, I need to be careful. I need to be careful. I need to limit who I'm going to let know about this. So what would you say to people who were in that situation like I was in, about seeking help, for seeking the right support. And when I mean the right support, you know how I feel about this. I think when we're talking about the brain and we're talking about things that can seriously impact your life, because we know when people get very depressed, they can do all sorts of things, you know, to themselves and perhaps to other people, that it's really important to work with proper professionals. So, as you know, like yourself, so what would you recommend? Thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. Make sure you're subscribed and share the video out, because like that, it helps me to help support you, interview amazing people like Dr. Bylender Walia, and create amazing tools and resources that you can use yourself independently to live a better, freer, and more fairer life. Now, I think you're going to love watching this video here, so make sure you go along and give it a watch.